Hi, my loves.
If I do bad, I wouldn't have did all that.
So you clicked on this video either because you didn't pass step one, you are curious about what happens when you don't pass step one, or you are horrified and scared that you won't pass step one. Notice how I am intentionally saying not pass instead of failing. And that is because it is not a failure. It is simply a misstep. It is simply a feature of your academic progression, because there's going to be other aspects, right, in your academic career that you might not do well at either. And I just think labeling something as like a failure, even though yes, that's what it says on the report, just means that there is a lack of forward movement. And the first thing that I'm going to say is it's all about your attitude and mindset, right? That is the very first thing that you have to address when you are dealing with something like not passing your licensing examination for any of the steps. Now, this video is specific to career planning when it comes to not passing step one. I can upload another video on like the step-by-steps of kind of what happened and how I have gotten onto my new kind of academic planning, which is that I am currently going to be retaking step one. I have to retake it by December. Then I'll be restarting my clinical rotations in March with the class below me. And then after that, I'm essentially back on a normal schedule as if I have always been within the class of 2027. But when it comes to specific career planning and career ideals and just like what's going on now with me, your girl is still planning to apply to orthopedic surgery. Now, I want to preface this in saying that I am an anomaly. I am one of the very few people who has probably not passed step one and is still like, I'm going to apply to a competitive specialty anyway. Now, the reason why I don't mind is because number one, it's not impossible to get into a competitive specialty despite not passing. Don't let people tell you that it is. Even if the number is very, very low. When it comes to orthopedic surgery, there are only 0.06% of practicing physicians, orthopedic surgeons in the United States that identify as both Black and female. So the odds were never in my favor any freaking way. And to me, hard is hard. It really doesn't matter to me if that number is 0.00001 or 1%. No matter what, they were always slim. So it's just kind of like, why even approach this any differently than what I was planning to in the first place? And what I mean by that is because I'm interested in a competitive specialty, one of the big threes or the big fives, or whatever the new number is, because I'm interested in that, I have had to get early exposure to the field, and I have to be very well connected in the field and just demonstrate that I'm very passionate about the field and its further progression, whether that is doing research, that's attending conferences, that's joining groups, and I've done all of that. And so for me, my career progress really isn't that affected because again, I'm doing all of the things that I was planning to do anyway. So just to go into details, when it comes to research, you are technically supposed to publish as much as you can, but I also have been mentored that it is best to have quality over quantity. So as of right now, I will have 3 primary research publications under my belt, 2 of which will be in a national journal, 2 of which I will be the leading author on. Okay, so I do what needs to be done when it comes to research. When it comes to extracurriculars, that is things like joining leadership positions or entering into leadership positions in different organizations. I've just been appointed to 5 different positions within the past month. Again, I can detail all of this and kind of like what I'm doing in medical school. This will probably be actually a separate update in my monthly med newsletter. If you're familiar with my platform, I've actually recently updated my uploads to where I'm going to be informing you guys of just like what's going on with me per month in terms of my academic progress. So one of my uploads will be specific to research and extracurriculars. And so I'm not going to go into crazy details, but just in general, I've made sure that I have demonstrated that I really want to be an orthopedic surgeon. I don't really want to be anything else. The only other career path that I've really looked into is emergency medicine. Some of my projects are related to trauma injuries, traumatic injuries. And, you know, in a trauma bay, there's a bunch of different physicians, including emergency medicine physicians. And so that's the only other variation of specialty that I've looked at. But ultimately, I know that my overall goal is to do fellowship in sports medicine. So it's all about understanding what path I want to take to ultimately get me to work with athletes. And so as of right now, the whole me not passing step one doesn't really affect me as much as maybe somebody else. And I say this because I have been paired with people who also haven't passed step one, right? And these are like older people, these are people who are about to graduate, all that good stuff, right? And they've told me straight up, oh, I wanted to do neurosurgery. I wanted to do general surgery. I wanted to do all of these things. And then I gave up because I didn't pass. And I was like, oh, no. I don't think that this pairing is going to work, because what does that have to do with me? I'm a firm believer in that you have to surround yourself with people who believe in the same way that you do, right? You have to surround yourself with people who approach life and view life in the same way that you do in order to do it efficiently. Because while somebody else may be looking at me and being like, girl, you are being very delusional, this is not making sense, you should just go on and do family medicine, which, by the way, somebody told me, right? Somebody at my institution and outside of my institution, multiple people have been like, oh, just be a family med doctor, which is a crazy insult to people who are primary care physicians. And then number two, it's also like, you're telling me that out of all the work that I've done, you're saying that it's going to be overshadowed by the fact that I didn't pass something. Stop playing with me. And so I think it's something that really affected me in not passing, and like what I've been doing now is surrounding myself with people who are just committed to seeing me succeed, right? I'm committed to going to these, like I said, conferences, doing all this research, being a part of all these different memberships, and, you know, obviously making sure that my academics are straight as well. But I think that this is also an easier transition for me, because I know that me not passing step one wasn't a result of me not knowing the material. Even right now, as I'm redoing practice assessments, I have still continued to score well and high above the passing range. I just think, like, bro, life happens. Like, that, I don't mean to say that in an excusatory way, right? Because life is going to happen to me even when I'm a surgeon. And so I feel like this is just a lesson that I needed. And I said this in the initial upload that I made when I first returned back to my YouTube channel after some months, and I'll plug it somewhere on the screen. But I just think that this was a lesson that I needed to understand how to roll with the punches in a very difficult and stressful career, and know how to do so gracefully, knowing how to move forward, right? Knowing how to handle my emotions in this space. And that's mainly the thing that I've been focusing on. I literally do not talk to people who try to speak death over my career. Like, you telling me that I can't do something is not helpful to me, so why am I listening to you? Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to be ignorant in the fact that this is a more difficult process. I'm actually considering dual applying into both emergency medicine and orthopedic surgery, but ultimately, I'm not doing anything that I wouldn't have done otherwise. So I just think that when it comes to how does not passing step one affect you future-wise, you're more so concerned about other people's opinions about what it looks like to not pass, rather than the actual feasible and tangible things, if that makes sense, right? Unless, again, you would maybe consider doing like a master's of public health, or a master's of something in order to look more competitive. But I'm not gonna go and get a separate degree that I don't actually want to get for the hope of being selected as an orthopedic surgery resident. That's just crazy to me. I don't think that that's any way to go about life. I don't think that you should ever do anything that you don't actually want to do, because you'll be miserable. That just makes no sense. You get one life, and doing something that you genuinely know that you have no interest in also does not help the field of science and the field of medicine. It does me no good to have a master's of public health knowing good and damn well that I'm not going to use it. And so I'm not going to do anything like that. And then, because I'm starting my rotations all the way in March, right now I have the time to go and do my research and to do my publications and to pretty much do the exact thing that I would do in a research year. That is the reason why I'm taking my exam like next month, so that way I have all of October, all of November, all of December, to do everything that I need to do, so that way that year isn't necessary. Now, I will also say that I am in a unique kind of circumstance, and that I have been blessed and favored and fortunate enough to have a lot of good social capital, okay? I would say that's the number one thing that you have to consider if you have not passed step one, or if you're afraid that you're not gonna pass step one, is how strong is your support system, right? Who do you have that can open doors for you and that can shout at the people in the room that you deserve a chance despite the fact that you didn't pass? I am really lucky that I know a lot of like big name, not me, again, not lucky, blessed that I have a lot of big wigs who have a lot of skin in the game of orthopedics that have no problem vouching for me, writing letters of recommendation for me, giving me opportunities to do research, lead research, go to conferences with them, introduce me to people, right? I have those types of mentors who have such influence on the field that if they're saying that like I'm good, that says a lot. And so, and I also mentioned this in my last upload. I think that that is something that I am very, 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 very fortunate for, and has meant a lot to me, just mentally and emotionally, that despite this thing happening to me, that nobody really cared. Nobody that really mattered cared. They were still like, and we're gonna keep it moving. We're gonna continue to, you know, to get you these grants and put you in these rooms and put you in these spaces and let people know that like we're behind you 100%. That just shows me that I've been doing something right, beyond just like being a good student. I'm a good human. I'm a good person, and obviously I'm putting out there that there is something about me that would be useful for the world of orthopedic surgery, and there are people who can agree with that. Ultimately, again, for me, I think that I have more of a unique circumstance, and that there's really not too many changes with my career planning other than the possibility of dual applying. And I'm not even really entertaining the idea that I won't get accepted into a residency program. And that may sound insane to someone. I know somebody's gonna like, girl, like you might be right in that soap, and you know, you being real Lulu and this and that and nerd, and you know, be realistic. I've had some people tell me that as well, like be realistic. But I think if I start thinking in terms of what happens if I don't, I'm gonna speak that reality into my existence. I'm going to start showing up in such a way where I lack confidence. In fact, the other day, I was actually talking to some orthopedic surgeon residents at my institution, and the way that I was communicating was so chicken shit. Like, for lack of a better word, like one resident asked me straight up, like, do you want to do orthopedic surgery? And because in my head, I was like, this girl does not know that I did not pass step 1, and that I have to retake it again, that I started hesitating to be like, oh, hell yes, I do. And that was the first thing that she noticed. She was like, it doesn't really sound like you're sure. It doesn't really sound like you know. So I recommend that you figure that out before you even bother like talking to anybody else. Like, it was a very, very cut dry kind of thing. Then as I was like, you know what, she's right. Like, why am I hesitating? And I still didn't tell her that I didn't pass, but I started communicating more confidently, like that this is what I really want. And she started suggesting all of these opportunities for me, gave me all these emails and people to text and people to call and people to get in contact with, because I was saying, this is what I want. And I was demonstrating and letting her know, like, oh, these are all the things that I'm a part of. These are all the other research things that I do. And because I was showing her like, yeah, like this is it for me, she was much more enthusiastic to help me. And so I genuinely feel that if I walk around with this attitude of, oh, what if I don't make it into orthopedic surgery residency? What if this doesn't happen for me? That I'm going to unconsciously start to behave in such a way that that will start to come true. Like, I'm going to lose out on opportunities, lose out on connections, lose out on things that I could be doing simply because I'm not showing up as strongly as I need to. And so that's something that I've been very conscious of, very cognizant of, and very intentional with, which is why, again, I have not used the word failing and saying that I failed step 1. Even though I said that in one of the video titles. But something else that I think is important to keep in mind in terms of career planning, once one of these licensing exams potentially doesn't go your way, is that you have to assess kind of like why and what happened. And if that thing really is kind of academic misunderstandings or a lack of understanding the material and interpreting the content, then I think that that's a whole different beast. I think now we're talking about things like getting a tutor. We're talking about, you know, figuring out better study habits. Again, I can't speak too much on that because I know that for me, that wasn't the case. Again, I'm scoring very well. I've been scoring very well on these assessments. And it, for me, was just a matter of emotional and mental kind of drawbacks that I have thankfully been working out in therapy, taking my ADHD meds and all the stuff that I need to do. So I don't want to give false advice. I don't want to come on here and give pointers for something that I haven't done. I think that would be very disingenuous of me. A lot of your favorite med influencers don't have the same integrity, but I do. And so I don't know if this video was completely helpful. I hope that it, at the bare minimum, was transparent and truthful and honest. And just the gist would be that a majority of the thing that you need to consider and that you need to understand about what your future is going to look like when you don't pass an assessment like a licensing examination, like USMLE, step 1, 2, whatever, is that your attitude is going to determine what happens to you next. It's not what you're going to do physically. Like I said, it's not going to be you doing a master's program. It's not going to be you taking a gap year. It's not going to be you doing research. It's going to be, how do you feel when you do these things? Because you can do all that stuff. You can go ahead and try to brush up on your application as much as you want to. But if you're going in there with an attitude of defeat, if you're going in there with an attitude of loss, you're going to lose. Like, you're not going to succeed because you've already counted yourself out. I think what has helped anchor me the most in my positivity is the fact that I never believed that one mistake was enough to just ruin your life if you don't let it. If I had that belief, my mentees would be in jail, right? I have worked with some people's whose backgrounds would scare you, would horrify you, and you would never even realize that to this day because of just how much progress that they've made. Like, I love my OG mentees. And same thing with my parents. My parents would have never made it out the ghettos of Baltimore if this was the case. And so I just feel like there's not a single example in my life that shows that you have to get it right the first time, that shows that you have to be perfect. Not one. And I'm not about to start believing that right now. And so that's pretty much the crux of this whole video. And I hope that this is helpful to somebody. I hope that this positivity, this attitude seeps and radiates off of me and onto you if you need it. Especially if you're new here, this is pretty much the vibe and essence of my entire platform. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching and supporting. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And comment down below just like any things that you have questions about that maybe I can make future videos about, or that I can just answer for you right down below in the comments. Things to look forward to on my channel. I am going to be going into a deeper dive of just my step 1 retake process, as well as my research, and just like my monthly med updates. And I just can't wait for that because I've been missing y'all. I've been missing this connection. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Mwah!